Good afternoon, everybody. We want to welcome you to our TD SYNNEX weekly technical webinar series. We're so glad that you've joined us for today. As we've always mentioned, this session is recorded. If you don't desire to be recorded, please exit now. This recording will be available after we're finished today, along with the slides. So this week's focus is on M365 Teams fundamentals. We have our own talented Mika Newell-Smith here to join and tell us a little bit about how this all works. So Mika, I'm going to go ahead and turn the stage over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, John. All right, so today we're going to talk about my favorite subject, Teams. All right, so we're going to jump into the Teams fundamentals. Let me go ahead and go to the next slide here. So we're going to talk about why Teams, which many of you may have seen, but we want to make sure that since you're going to get a copy of the slides, we want to make sure that you're getting this content as well so you can present it to your customers. We're going to look at the Teams architecture. We're going to look at how collaboration works, both internally in your own organization, as well as with people outside your organization with Teams. We're going to look at the collaboration of Teams. I said that already. We're going to look at meetings, and then we're going to look at webinars, like the one we're doing today. All right, so why Teams? And again, you may have seen this slide a lot in case you didn't have a copy of it. Now you do when you get your copy of these slides. Basically, what it feels like is everybody's using it, all right? But there's obviously some customers out there that aren't. So for the customers out there that aren't, there's a whole lot of people who love it and want to use it. So here's your case to make with those customers who haven't tried it yet or aren't using it yet, haven't moved over. Obviously, huge increase with the work from home initiative that started last year and continues. I've been a work from home person for the last 11 years. So I was on that train a long time ago. All right, so obviously with the momentum of hybrid work, unified communications, again, it's a huge segment now. It's an area of focus for everyone. How do we do this hybrid work? Microsoft has been doing it. They know how to do it. They're masters at it. So their platform is just spectacular. So why not, jump on board with, number one. All right, so this just gives you, again, more ammunition when you're talking to customers about how much usage Microsoft and Teams are getting. It's just phenomenal. And because it's such a phenomenal product. This also shows in the UCAS quadrant. All right, Microsoft is a leader in that quadrant. All right, so the architecture. I really like this slide. This goes into, I think it's a good sort of overview of how Teams works. And I realize a lot of you may, like us, we use Teams every day. So, but there are still people who don't use Teams every day. So I wanted to go into a little bit of beginner level, and then we'll go into more advanced level as well. So you've got your organization, and then you have different teams within your organization, the beauty of the name of the product. And then within each team, you can have what are called channels. All right. And those might be groups of people within each team, like segments. Like even on our Microsoft team, our engineers are segmented by those who work on Microsoft 365 and those who work on Azure. And then we have other engineers that work on other product lines as well. So we have segments within each team also, just like most every business does. So that's what your channels can be for, right? To segment those teams. And then within those channels, you also have other functionality that's going on, like file sharing, like chat that's happening just within that group of people. So all of that this kind of shows you how it's organized, how your teams can be organized and how your channels have different aspects that can be just for the people within that group or that channel. All right. I also love this slide. I think this slide is fantastic. And I kind of have it in here almost like 3 times. So this is actually a PDF that you can download from the Microsoft Docs site. But this talks about the architecture. And what I love about this is it really shows you what I call the iceberg of Teams. So Teams is like an iceberg. So you have the top level here. That's the 10% that sticks out above the water. The 90% that's below the water line is the power behind Teams, the things that are going on behind the scenes that the user generally has no idea about. So when we go into Teams, again, when I started using it, and I'm the person who came from the voice world. So when I started using it, I could just go create a team. I could go upload files, share them with my team members, because people were constantly asking me, I'm kind of a document hoarder. So people were constantly asking me, do you have this document? Do you have that document? Because it was easier to ask me than it was to go find it on the website. So I would start putting document storage out places and I'd say, go to the Teams channel, go to the Teams channel. I've got it up there. So that part was fantastic for me. And nobody had to teach me how to do that. It was easy enough to figure out. What I didn't realize until I came to the Microsoft side was what's really happening when I upload that file is it's actually being stored in SharePoint or OneDrive, depending on where I've, uploaded it. So if it's within a team, it's being stored in SharePoint. All right, if it's my own file that I've put in Teams, then it's on my OneDrive. All right, so things with chat. These are all the things that are happening behind the scenes. So every time a team is created, like I created Teams in our Teams application, that's creating a new Microsoft 365 group automatically. An admin doesn't have to go do that. That's happening. All right, SharePoint Online is automatically set up for that new team. Exchange Online has a shared mailbox and a shared calendar. That's happening within Teams as well. There's a OneNote notebook that's automatically spun up for Teams. So all of this is what's happening behind the scenes or below the waterline when it comes to the iceberg of Teams. And that's what I think is the beauty of this application is it's so simple and easy to use. It looks like a self-contained app that just has these features, and that's fantastic. But the power of what you're getting and the usage of what you're getting is what's happening below that waterline or behind the scenes. You're getting the power of all of these other major applications, Exchange Online, Planner, SharePoint, OneDrive, Stream, Yammer. You're getting the power of all those applications in one easy to use interface, which is, again, the beauty of Teams. All right, this is sort of the same slide, but I wanted to provide this for your reference. I won't go over it because it just really talks in more detail about if you're not familiar with what is OneDrive, what is SharePoint, what is Exchange Online, Stream, Yammer. So it gives little explanations and has it side by side with that diagram that, like I said, I love that diagram. All right, this is another view of sort of that iceberg. So this gives you, I have a hard time deciding what slides to weed out. So this gives you the top level user interface. So again, this is me as the user of Teams. This is what I see. I know I can go to the web and log into Teams. I can use a desktop. I can use the iPhone, Android. I can use the Graph API. I'm accessing Teams here. That's the tip of the iceberg. What's happening down here behind the scenes, that is the beauty and the power of Teams. All those applications working together, everything being done behind the scenes where I don't have to know how to use all these other applications. That can be quite complicated, all right? So I don't have to know how to use those. I can use Teams and get the power out of it without having all of that knowledge of all those other applications. All right, so this is again another slide, but this one talks really to the IT architect. So what do they need to know? The person who's going to have to manage all this. So what do they need to know? And again, when you spin up a team, those things are done automatically. That Microsoft 365 group created for you. SharePoint, OneDrive, the mailbox, all that's done anyway. It's done automatically, but they are going to have to manage those. So this gives you a diagram for like talking to the IT person or the IT staff. of, okay, when you create that team, what is it relating to, and what things do you need to manage? What are the dependent services that you're going to need to monitor and manage based on implementing teams? And then also with Azure Active Directory, what things are you going to need to monitor or manage there as well? All right, Graph API. This is in my mind is sort of like the spaghetti that holds everything together. So it's a REST API, all right, and it's helping all of your applications talk to each other so that you can pull information from them as well. So everything is connected, all right, everything's talking, everything's connected, it's all working together. And this Graph API allows you to pull information from it. So this is how you can pull things like reports and create reports is part of what Graph API is doing. All right, now we have John Peterson and Mark Layton on our team and others that are security and compliance experts. That's not me, I'm not there yet. But what I wanted to mention is, again, because Teams is like the iceberg, you're only seeing the 10% of what you're actually using, the applications that you're actually using, but you're getting the protection that is involved with OneDrive and SharePoint and Exchange and Microsoft 365 in general. So whatever security you implement there, that also applies to Teams. You're not losing that security level because you're not using those applications directly. All right, so that security and compliance is still available in Teams because you're using those underlying applications as well. So all of the things that you see listed here, I won't read them all to you. You've probably seen this slide, several times, but all of this is available to the information that's in Teams as well. So you're securing your information, you're protecting your information, you're governing what people can and can't do, who can access what, who can see what. You've got all kinds of protection when it comes to Teams because, again, you're using those underlying applications when you're using Teams. You just don't, a lot of people just don't know it. Authentication can be done with Teams as well. So authenticating people to get into Teams, multi-factor authentication, if you're not using it, kind of shame on you or shame on the customer if they haven't implemented that yet. That is something everybody absolutely needs for security purposes. But that can be done with Teams as well. All right, conditional access. So this can be implemented with Teams as well. So the ability to discern, is that person logging in from the same place they've normally logged in geographically or by device? Is it the normal time for them to be logging in? Are they trying to access the same application as they normally do? You can do all kinds of conditional access policies, and those can apply to Teams as well. Right, and then security, your advanced threat protection, you can do safe links. You can make sure people aren't uploading things to Teams that are malicious, either knowingly or unknowingly. You can have safe attachments so people don't download things that are malicious. Right, you can even do information barriers within Teams, which is actually preventing two teams from talking to each other. So maybe you've got an internal sales competition or something, and you want two teams to compete against each other. So for a specified amount of time, they can't talk to each other. All right, they can't chat with each other. They can't share information. Maybe one of the examples they've used in the Microsoft documentation is attorneys. There may be attorneys on opposing sides of an argument. So for the time that they are working on that case, they can't communicate with each other. So you can even block people from communicating with each other in Teams. Doing compliance retention policies, Teams, if you're not going to manage it, can get out of hand. You can have all kinds of data that you're trying to store. So having retention policies, either because you need to keep information for a certain amount of time for maybe compliance reasons, maybe programs, government programs, just compliance with other organizations, or maybe you want to get rid of information, because those retention policies can work both ways. And your data loss prevention, you can still prevent people from pulling information they shouldn't have access to and sharing that with others. Right, the primary management tools for Teams, obviously the Teams Admin Center is going to be the primary. You will access Azure Active Directory Admin Center as well, along with the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, the Security Center, and the Compliance Center. You can use PowerShell and Graph API for management as well. Right, and then this just gives you a nice little view. When you do go into the Teams Admin Center, you can see at a glance all of your teams, how many channels they have, how many members they've got, who's the owner, how many owners are on that team, how many guests, are they private or public? So you can just see at a glance all your teams in that Teams Admin Center. All right, so now let's look at collaboration. All right, so with collaboration, again, I didn't want to assume everybody uses Teams every day like we do. So here, I wanted to show you a little bit about the user interface and maybe some things, because a lot of people are just using chat. It's just like any other application where there's 90% of the people only using 10% of what it will actually do. You find that all the time. All right, so with the Teams user interface on the left-hand side, you have obviously chat. You've got activity to show you the activities that you've got going on, the recent things that have happened. The chat is going to actually give you anything you've missed. You've got the people you've been chatting with here. You can search for someone. It's got persistent chat, so it will store all of the chat information. You can add people to a chat too. And you can decide what they can and can't see, how far back the chat can go for them. Maybe it starts with today, or maybe 10 days ago, or maybe they can see all of it. So when you add someone to a chat, you choose that, or add them to a team, you can choose that capability as well. All right, and you can obviously share that you liked someone, you can put pictures in, you can do all kinds of fun things with the chat capabilities. And then going into your teams, you would have a list of teams that you're a member of here, or owner, depending on whether you created it or whether somebody else did and invited you. So here, and then you've got your channel information for the different channels that are created within that team. And teams can be actual teams in your company, so customer service, sales, technical support, engineering, whatever, but it can also be project-based. So a lot of times you can use a team because you have an upcoming conference, and everybody who's going to be involved in that conference posts all the PowerPoint presentations they're going to use in that conference. They have to be posted there by a certain date. You can set up projects for people, and then you've got these tabs across here too. So you can share your files. You can have a planner set up. You can add tabs here as well. So add other information. This is an example, and it's something we're using here at our office too. You can actually have projects that are set up with deadlines. So there's a deadline, and in my activity report, I see that I have something that's gone past the deadline. Not that I would ever do that, but if you didn't get something done on time, this will remind you. So this will go in and you can set a date. You can have these different planner and the little buckets, all right, of projects for people to do, and then a manager or a supervisor can see, did they get completed on time? Are they finished? Who finished them? Because you may be assigning them to a group of people where anybody could grab it. It doesn't have to be just for one specific person. So you can assign that to yourself and then finish that project, and you'll be able to see completed projects and projects that are still in progress. So there's all kinds of ways that teams can be used that maybe a lot of customers are not taking advantage of. Also, you can have reporting. This can be another tab that you add to your interface. So you can have reports that are integrated with your teams to see the status of what's going on, whether it is a marketing campaign, whether it is registrations for a conference you have coming up, whether it is how many tickets each person has handled, whatever. I mean, really the results are endless for what you would want to do here. Applications can be added to teams. So you can go in and add a tab to a team and choose from pages and pages of applications that you would want to add to your team. One of the, I don't know if it's on this particular screen here, but one of them was like SurveyMonkey. If you had surveys that you had related to a conference that you've done or something like that, you could have that integrated into the team and have those surveys come in, and everything can be in one place, which is so fantastic because you don't have to know all of those different apps from all of those different vendors and how they work. You just go into the Teams app and it's all right there and you already know how to use it. It's so intuitive. All right, also with your Teams user interface, there's all different kinds of applications. So that was just a little snippet. So this shows you how they're even categorized. So you can go in and look for applications based on a vertical, based on what you're trying to add to Teams, a connector, a bot, another tab. You can look up all the applications, and there are many for you to choose from that can be integrated into the Teams application. Again, to have that one place where everybody goes to get everything. All right, now it doesn't matter if you're only using your, if you've been using your laptop, if you've been using your Surface device, your or an iPad, it doesn't matter what you've been using. You can do this from your mobile device as well. So if you wanted to, you could even present, like I could be presenting today from my mobile device if I wanted to. It has that level of integration with the mobile. So chatting, what it looks like on a mobile device, joining a meeting, presenting in a meeting, you can do that as well. You can still mute, go on speaker, hang up, show or not show your video. You can access files. You can do pretty much everything you can do almost from the desktop, from the mobile device. And they are adding more and more features every day. All right, so now let's talk about people. That was pretty much all for people inside your company. Now let's talk a little bit about people outside your company. So people outside your company, you can give them access to Teams as well. All right, there's two sort of versions of that or levels of that. So there's external access, which has been likened by Microsoft to federation. So it's someone who's external to your organization, but you're going to invite them to a team. All right, and you're going to decide here if those users can communicate with other people, other Teams users. You can turn that on and off. All right, so you can decide if you're going to allow that, but they can join a team and participate, all right, as a federated user. So I have the ability to chat with people outside our organization within my Teams application. So that's external access. All right, guest access is someone who has a higher level or a deeper level of access into Teams. So this is someone outside your organization, but they still want to use Teams and communicate with people within your organization. So they will be listed in your Azure Active Directory. All right, and you'll see them in the Teams Admin Center and the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So when you go into guest access, you will have more controls over what your guests are allowed and not allowed to do when it comes to the Teams application and the integration there. All right, then I've got a link for you here, and then the next two slides are going to show you what the difference is between what an external user can do versus a guest user. So the guest users, again, are the ones who are in your Active Directory, and the external users are the ones who are not. They're more like a federated integration with Teams. So this next slide here gives you some more information as well. So obviously the guest being in your Active Directory can have more capabilities than someone who is external. All right, there's also Teams audit logs, so you can go in and track what users have been doing within Teams. So people who have been into the administration of Teams, you can go in and track what they've done, when they've done it, and see who's been managing your system either correctly or incorrectly. All right, and then analytics and reports. So you can go in and pull. I'm shocked, again, coming from the telephony world, I'm shocked at the level of analytics and reports that are just built in and available with Teams and Microsoft 365. So in the telephony world, we always had to pay a third party to provide that, and it wasn't cheap. So having all of this built in and available to you anytime is, to me, a huge selling point when it comes to this application, again, because All of that is available. You don't have to pay extra for it. It's not hidden. They're not trying to get more out of you just to get to it. You get all of this information to make decisions right there built into the application. Right? You can tell what teams are being used. So again, if we're talking about that data governance, that data management, you can see which teams aren't being used anymore. So people created teams, that team is either disbanded or they're just not using, they're not uploading files and sharing files that way. Maybe they're having a bunch of meetings, but they're just not file people. So they're not sharing information, they're not collaborating. That could go two ways. Either you train them how to do it, or you don't need that team anymore and you can get rid of it and free up that space. So it's entirely up to you how you use this information, but having this information available at any given moment is absolutely fantastic. All right, and then with the licensing, Teams is enabled with pretty much the majority of the Microsoft 365 licenses. So whether it's a small business, enterprise, education, or developer, Teams is enabled with the majority of the licensing. And it doesn't matter whether you're using the web client, it doesn't matter if you're using the desktop client or the mobile app. When it's enabled for you to use from any client. All right, so let's talk about meetings. All right, so I wanted to have this slide first because this talks a little bit about the differences between meetings, webinars, and live events. So I get this question a fair amount. So meetings are the normal meetings that you have in Teams if you're a Teams user. So you do either an ad hoc, like a schedule it right now, meet now type meeting, or you schedule a meeting for everybody to attend. It may be just the people on a team. It may be a lot more than that. So you can have up to 20,000 people. So obviously your whole organization could be involved in a meeting. There's no registration when it comes to Teams meetings, so people don't register for that. If you want people to register, that's a webinar like what we're doing. So people register. You can have up to 1,000 participants. If you want to go higher than that, you can do a view only. When it comes to webinars, so that would be the participants can't do anything other than view the session. All right, so if you want to keep where you can have the audience interaction and specify different presenters, then you want to keep it under 1,000 for your webinars. All right, and then live events, these are for up to 20,000 people, and there is no registration for a live event. All right, and live events are broadcasted to large audiences. They're generally moderated. They have a Q&A that needs to be moderated. All right, and then they also have a producer, like a TV show or a movie has a producer. So there's a producer for live events. All right, now that can be done within Teams or Yammer or I think SharePoint might be the other one. But those events are produced. And when I think of live events, it's not Ignite or Inspire, but it's that type of event. Those are obviously bigger, but it's that type of event, that very professional thing that you want to allow people to be able to access after the fact, and you're going to record it and store it. That is generally the type of event that is considered a live event. All right, for most small businesses, meetings and webinars are where you're going to stay, and those are the ones that we're going to cover in the next few slides here. All right, so when it comes to meetings, again, if you're using Teams at all, you've been in plenty of meetings. Even if you're not using Teams, other people have probably invited you to Teams meetings for the people who are. So you've got Together Mode, which is a fun little way to put everybody on one screen together and make it look like everybody's in the same office. All right, and there's all kinds of fun little backgrounds that you may or may not have seen already where you can put people in groups. I like this. I think it breaks up some of those meetings sometimes, breaks up some of the monotony there. All right, and then your custom backgrounds. I like this too because this is like if I wanted to have a background behind me, there's all kinds of, there's a whole gallery of backgrounds you can choose from that Microsoft has posted out there, and they allow you to upload your own custom backgrounds as well. So if you took some fantastic picture and you wanted to post that and let people use that as their background, you can do that. So these were just some of the examples that I pulled from the custom background gallery there. All right, lowering all the raised hands. This is a great feature if you've been using webinars or meetings. So this is GA. I went to the roadmap to check on these features this morning, and this one, it said rolling out, but it also said GA. So I went ahead and put GA in there because it didn't show up under launched, but the GA dates were like several months ago. So I went ahead and put GA in there as the release timing. But lowering all the raised hands, some people raise their hands, they forget, some people hit it by accident. You don't know if they have a question. When you ask them, they're like, oh, sorry, that, you answered that a while ago. So you can lower all the raised hands if you want to start something new and not have to rely on the individual users to manage that. Right, breakout rooms, we've used this here at our office as well. So this is a great way to make those virtual meetings seem like the real in-person meetings, where you might get together and then everybody breaks off into their groups to come up with information. Then we all come back together and share that information as a large combined group. So this is a way for you to do that virtually as well. So it allows you to have people go off in their little groups. They have their own separate meetings that are going on, then everybody comes back together and collaborates again. So that is already out and available for you to use and enjoy. All right, so the apps that are built for meetings, this is just talking again about how you can use these on your mobile devices as well. So even though you're attending something from a mobile device, you don't have to lose out on those features. So you still have the ability to go in and see what are basically tabs. You can start a recording from your mobile device. All right, you can turn on live transcription. So you've got the same type of options available. You're not going to miss out on a bunch of features just because you're on your mobile device. All right, you can multitask when you're in a meeting, even though you're on a mobile device. You can participate in polls during a meeting, even though you're on a mobile device. All right, meeting recaps, this is launched as well. So if you miss a meeting and you want to go back and see what happened, that's available and automatic within your Teams as well, and also in the Outlook calendar of the meeting event. All right, so now let's talk about webinars. So who can schedule a webinar? Anyone who can schedule a Teams meeting can schedule a webinar. All right, so if it's available to basically everyone who can schedule a Teams meeting. All right, and if you can't, then you can check with whoever the administrator is for your Teams application. So who can register for a webinar? By default, anybody can. All right, if you want to, you can restrict access to only people in your organization or something like that, but by default, everybody can register. All right, so during the webinar, when the attendees click, which you guys did this, when you click the link to join, you were in the lobby. So the organizer had to allow you into the webinar, all right, that allows you to start on time. It allows presenters to communicate, okay, is my screen working, before everyone else comes in and gets involved. I put big stars here because if you've used other applications, this is so important and so seemingly simple, but having everyone's audio and video on mute or turned off by default when they connect is so helpful, because we've all been in those meetings where that doesn't happen and it's very frustrating and it's very distracting. So having this on by default seems like just a simple little, yeah, why wouldn't everybody do that? But it's huge. All right, especially if you've been the presenter or the person who's been distracted by someone else talking on some other conversation or talking to their dog or, whatever. All right, so having the presenters control the audience participation. So you have the ability to engage with things like raising your hand, putting emojis up on the screen, letting people know if things are going well, not going well, you have a question, you have a comment, something like that. All right, and then for after the webinar, the organizer can download the attendance report. So that is available as well. All right, so I just put in some screenshots here from the quick start guide for webinars. So basically you're just going to go up to the right hand screen and you're going to see webinar listed for you there. All right, and again, it reminds you the attendees when they join default will be audio and video is off. So the organizer can allow that when and if they choose. All right, and then you can go in and set up the registration. So for the users, so if you wanted people outside your organization to join, then you could go in and say require registration for everyone. So that's if you want to allow everybody to register. All right. And then viewing the registration form here allows you to go in and edit that after the fact. So once you got it all set up, then you can go in and edit after the fact. Did I skip something? Yes. So here is the actual event page. All right, so you can customize this event page by putting your company information in here, choosing a picture that you want to upload, providing the event details. You can copy the registration link and share it on all media that you have available. And then you'll get a congratulations message that, okay, you're done, everything's set up, share this with the world. Right, and then during the webinars, you've got PowerPoint Live, which is what I'm using right here, which is really nice because instead of like I normally have two screens where I see what you see, the big screen, and then over here I have my notes on my other monitor, and I'm doing this number, you know, going back and forth and trying to talk and look at the what you're seeing as well. So this puts it all on one screen, which is really nice. So, and you can see the slides that are coming up, which I like seeing what's coming next on the slide. So I can say, okay, yeah, I'm going to actually cover that on the next slide. And then you can see participants in chat. And if you do have any notes, I'm bad about not making any notes when it comes to a PowerPoint and just, you know, going off the cuff. But you can have your notes available for you here. And it's all on one screen where you're not, you know, going back and forth, getting whiplash. All right, and then with your Teams webinars, you can also do things like forms, which allows you to do polls. So you can have polling options available for you. You've got live reactions, which is what I was talking about. So you can go up and do the live reactions up here where you can do things like clapping, smiling, you know, not happy, you know, whatever it may be. You can raise your hand. So you've got all kinds of different options available in here, and going and using the forms is how you can do those polling questions also. All right, so I went and did, I went out to the roadmap and I did a search on Teams webinars just to see what would come up as features. So coming up in the very near future, very happy about this one, is the Teams Q&A. So instead of just the chat for asking and answering questions, there will be a Q&A option in webinars as well, and that should be out in December. And then automated webinar invite. This feature is the ability for you to, when that invitation is sent out to add that webinar, it automatically gets added to the Outlook calendar. So that's something that's coming up in December as well. And then Teams webinar for GCC, something that should be out this month. All right, and then these are the features that, you know, have been added recently, you know, already GA. All right. And then the next is the SYNNEX resources. So this is if you have any questions, we'll pause also for you to ask questions during this session. But if you have questions about our professional services, if you need help with an implementation of Teams, so your staff is overloaded, you just don't have the bandwidth to do it. Maybe you're new to the Teams environment. It's something that you want to get some help with initially, and then you want to take over that yourself. So whatever the reason, if you need us to help you implement that Teams environment, we're happy to do that. Just reach out to servicebd@synnex.com. All right. If you have any questions about Teams in general, Microsoft 365 in general, Azure in general, then you can email us at MSFT for Microsoft and then CSP@synnex.com. That is for Microsoft questions. And then if you have questions about peripherals that are add on to Teams. So that could be things like devices. phones, Teams rooms. It could be SIP trunk providers if you're going to add voice capabilities for direct routing to your Teams, which we'll talk about in a couple of weeks on another session, another one of my favorite topics. All right, so if you have questions about that, that's what our UCAS at synnex.com, those are the types of questions they can answer. Devices, trunk providers, anything like that that would be added on to Teams. All right, so with that, that is the last slide I have, so we can stop here and see if there are any questions I need to answer that didn't get answered in the chat.
Fantastic. Well done, Nika. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let me go ahead and stop the recording, and then we'll open up the microphones and let everybody jump on. Just a moment.